Hello, this is Pat Bulmer, partner and co-founder at Halo Consulting, the certified minority-owned search firm that makes the experience of working with a process-oriented retained executive firm accessible to startups by leveraging a risk-free fee model. Today, I'm joined by a former client and entrepreneur, Drew Williams. Drew, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me, Patrick.
We'd love to start by just asking you to introduce yourself. How did your career get started and how did it ultimately evolve into you starting your own company?
Thanks for asking, and great question. So I started my career with a B2C marketing agency and was just pretty much providing creative support, admin support as a marketing manager to various consumer-facing retail clients, which was an awesome experience just to kind of cut my teeth on just being creative as far as marketing is concerned, understanding what it looks like to create campaigns at a large scale, et cetera. So that was awesome. And then from there, I decided to kind of start tinkering with various startup ideas, just kind of moonlighting while working with the agency, which eventually snowballed me into meeting a founder of a company that specializes in offshore development and testing. And they had an incubator where they were spinning out testing companies. And the founder of that company essentially asked me to come and be the first employee there. And that company was Kobaton. So I joined Kobaton, I think around 2015, 2016. It's been so long now at this point. And it was pretty much a rocket ship, going from 0 to 1 as employee number one, kind of seeing us go from, myself, the CTO, CMO, CEO, to about 150 employees, kind of growing over the years, from stealth phase to growth mode, having acquired one of our local competitors, et cetera. And so that was really just an awesome experience to kind of see what it looks like to be on the inner workings of a startup. And then also being able to kind of leverage other people's money, i.e. the founders and the investors in that situation to, again, build my skill set, see different opportunities, challenges, et cetera, and having the budget to tackle those things. So again, seeing what it looks like to make that happen. And so after about 7 years there, I kind of got the itch to begin the entrepreneurial journey myself because I've always loved to live at the intersection of culture and tech. And so in June of 2022, I left Kobaton to start working on Fanfundr full time. And I've been doing that ever since with consulting for startups on the side.
Really, really cool journey there, and totally get how if you've been one of the first employees at a startup that scales to 100 plus employees, you'd want to do it again and maybe do it yourself. Um,
Yeah.
can, can you tell us about your current company, Fanfundr, and the product? Who's the user, the buyer, and who's the audience in general?
Yeah, so Fanfundr is a Web3 petition platform that allows consumers to request, influence, and own a variety of exclusive experiences, whether it's content, products, or events from their favorite creators and brands.
Very
And so
cool.
thank you. Yeah, so essentially what that means is, let's say you have uh, an idea to bring out a capsule collection from a favorite designer of yours. If you're a sneaker collector, maybe insert famous sneaker brand, right? You'd like to see something re-released from the vault that was only available in 2013. You would come to Fanfundr and create a petition, and in order to create that petition you would stake some funds in an escrow account, which would make that petition live and discoverable to other people in your community that also wanted to see this shoe, and buy that
Mm,
shoe. And so at that point, other people would also put money into escrow, that same petition escrow. And if that escrow amount reached the goal dictated by, insert brand when they stipulate what type of petitions they'll accept experiences for, then the brand has the ability to either accept or decline the petition to re-release the sneaker. And if they accept it, then all the money's transferred over to that brand. And at that point, NFTs or digital passes are minted for everyone who signed the petition, and those digital passes are redeemable for that shoe. Um,
mm,
in addition to that, those digital passes unlock a voting mechanism that allows people who sign the petition to have some sort of creative influence around the re-release of the shoe, whether that's dictating what shoe colorways are available, meaning it's a red versus blue versus green shoe, or something really cool like voting on a local artist from Atlanta or LA to design the sneaker box or something to that effect. And so really what we're trying to build here is a bilateral chain of influence to give consumers more influence over the cultural kind of assets and experiences that we consume.
Very, very interesting, and definitely something that I myself would use, and got a couple of Nikes that I'd love to see re-released personally. Um,
Awesome.
what what do you look for in an investor, and how has the investment landscape changed or evolved for you from when you first started Fanfundr?
Yeah, so I'd say that the key things we look for investors are adaptability and willingness to work with us, meet us where we are. We're looking for long-term partnerships, so looking for investors that are strategic, both from a funding perspective, obviously, but also tactically and from a network perspective. Specifically because FanFunder is dealing with very kind of exclusive experiences and things that are, very closely tied to the who's who within popular culture, whether that's within music or fashion, et cetera. We would prefer to have investors that have either an ear and or a pulse to those types of things,
Mm.
um, and ideally ones that would have reaches within their network and the ability to help connect us uh, to different channels for recruiting those different partners from a business development perspective. Um, but if I were to zoom out a little bit, I think honestly it just comes down to having investors that understand the vision, um, and can think big, around the market opportunity that we're trying to tackle. Because in all honesty, this is essentially, a $1.6 trillion market when we're talking about consumer discretionary spend within like millennials and Gen Z specifically. And so we're definitely trying to build this for a long-term play in terms of revolutionizing what the future of social commerce looks like.
Wow. Yeah, a $1 trillion plus TAM. That sounds like something very compelling. Yeah, as a startup that's leveraging some of these Web 3.0 technologies, how has the market sentiment around cryptocurrency impacted how your business is viewed by investors, and what, if anything, have you done to adapt to that new environment or perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really depends on who you're speaking to. I think that, investors that have already demonstrated a heavy Web3 or crypto appetite are largely unaffected by, sentiment changes around crypto. I think more so because they believe in the underlying technology and, are seeing evidence of the talent going there from a development perspective and engineering perspective. And I think that'll continue because I think that there's a lot of merit to the technology with specific applications. I think a lot of the speculative hype uh, has died down, and people are less bullish on, speculative, excuse me, driven experiences. Naturally, given everything that's happened there, and then I think on the flip side of that, people who have kind of always had somewhat of an aversion and or I guess call it like a toe dip approach into Web3 from an investment perspective, I'm sure that they've mostly kind of backed off a bit and or are looking for more solid maybe infrastructure plays and things of that nature. In terms of how we're trying to adapt to that, really we're doing everything we can to spread the message that our main goal is to onboard non-crypto natives, right? So again, going back to the market that we're playing in, there's a lot from a consumer discretionary spend perspective that opens us up to people who have never dealt with crypto before. And so, even down to our messaging, we're trying to simplify a lot of that and strip away, um, you know, unnecessary Web3 jargon and crypto jargon where applicable, right? We're not hiding that we're, dealing with NFTs or that, components of our application are on the blockchain. But at the same time, if we can explain it in a simplified term that just talks about what we're doing, the feature and the benefit it brings, then we're trying to do that. And so we're having those same types of tones and I guess like, ethos be applied to our conversations with investors as
Mhm.
well.
Have have you tried to piggyback off of any other popular trends or buzzwords like generative AI, or even just like influencer marketing or something like that?
When you say benefit, what do you mean? Like,
or just like label yourself or try to figure out a way to incorporate something like generative AI today because that's the type of thing or tech that's getting, investor recognition or attention, or have you just stuck to really the core concepts here when you describe your business?
Yeah, I would say I've definitely stuck to the core concepts. I mean, I think one of the things that I would caution founders to do is, or to not do rather, is to be disingenuous, I guess, about what their technology or product is for the
Mm,
sake of, riding a buzz or a trend. Um, Unless it has actual application. I'm not saying that, generative AI or anything doesn't have application for what we're building at Fanfundr, but it doesn't today. And so things like that, I would say, are um, not trends that I'm tying to. I will say we definitely, having kind of started this company in 2021, we're leaning into Web3 from a
mm,
messaging perspective at that time. And then again, kind of as we saw the sentiment shift, both within the crypto community, the investor community, and then again, the non crypto community, um, that again goes back to when we started trying to strip away a lot of the complexity and things like that. So I'd say today, right now, we're more so looking at terms like, community driven commerce
mm.
or, community experiences, definitely leaning heavy into the community.
No, I really appreciate that, and
Mm.
very clear that uh, the sincerity of your messaging is the kind of connecting thing, even if you leverage Web 3.0 a little bit less today than maybe in 2021. Um,
Yeah.
a- as a non-technical founder, how do you identify the right engineering co-founder or employee or outsourced partner?
Great question. So I tend to lean on advisors and mentors who are very astute at product. I think it's definitely always a great idea to have people smarter than you, um, especially when it comes to specialized knowledge, kind of within arm's reach when you're making these types of decisions. So that's kind of foundationally the direction I go in when it comes to the specifics of the type of person. For me, really, what it comes down to is less about experience and, um, I guess, heavy knowledge and more appetite for learning hard things and tackling challenging problems. I mean, obviously, the ideal would be someone who's a whiz at full stack, Solidity, etc. Oftentimes, people like that are unavailable to work on an equity basis at the beginning of a product unless you're already kind of heavily networked in to that type of talent.
Mm,
So from an outsider's perspective, a lot of my conversations have been, the project is awesome, but I need a full-time job, or I need X per hour, which is somewhat outside of our capital available right now. And so again, I've had to supplement certain aspects of development by going with people who, again, are very hungry, who have a passion for the project, but at the same time, obviously have some sort of development foundation and the capacity to grow and learn and the hunger to do that. So, to kind of sum it up, I'd say people who are hungry, people who love tackling hard problems, who can apply creative, critical thinking skills, um, and ideally people who also understand the cultural aspect of what we're
mm.
trying to build. I think that's really important from a user experience and design perspective, and even the ability to develop these experiences and features. So yeah.
It's really insightful, and I think obviously, you expect to hear that the technical capabilities or foundation, as you put it, are there, and that's obviously the most important part or a critical piece. But really interesting to just hear about how important the culture fit, the passion, the buy-in to the vision is as well, and
Mhm.
appreciate that that's got to be something you're screening for, looking for as much as, if not more so, the actual, tech stack that they've got.
Yeah, absolutely.
What if there was one piece of advice that you'd wished you had received before starting your own company, Drew, what would it be?
That's actually a really funny question because if I'm being fair to all of my mentors and advisors, and even some of my family members. I think for the most part, everyone told me everything I needed to hear from an advice perspective in terms of what to expect. The better question is, what's one piece of advice I wish I would have listened to? um, it's probably a better question because again, you get the age old wisdom and you're like, nah, that doesn't apply to me. I'll figure out a way around it, kind of thing. Um, and the response to that question is there's a myriad of things. One would be it definitely takes at least 6 months or more to raise capital. So I think kind of underestimating what it looks like to go from cold start from investor relations to term sheet was one interesting learning experience for me. Um, I'd say another one is probably uh, done is better than perfect. Again, is another one that I think a lot of people listen to and think, yeah, that makes sense. But when you're kind of knee deep in the weeds of a specific project, that perfectionism or the tendency to try to be a perfectionist can take over. And so just staying cognizant of that and always trying to ship and always trying to be fast so that we can, optimize and iterate is something I try to keep top of mind.
This is all really great context and information for other entrepreneurs out there. So, last question before we go, for our viewers, who should reach out to you? Founders, execs, investors, engineers, etc., and why? And then what's the best way to connect or get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd say anyone within any of those buckets would be great, especially if you're a founder of another Web3 company or Web2 company that has, value propositions related to pop culture and community. Would love to get in touch, potentially talk about partnerships and integrations, things like that. From an investor perspective, again, anyone with a Web3 appetite or specifically playing in the pre-seed B2C stage would be awesome. And then from an engineer perspective, again, like I was talking about, anyone who has a passion for Web3, pop culture, community, playing with new tools, experimenting, trying and doing hard things, reach out. And the best way to get in touch with me is either via email. So that is Drew at fanfundr.com, and that is FANFUNDR.com, or through Twitter, which is Drew W, the letter W, creates. And that's it.
Drew, thank you so much for joining. And to our viewers, please subscribe to our YouTube page to get more content like this and check out our website, haloconsulting.com, to learn more about how we're making best in class process of an executive search firm accessible to startups. Thanks, Drew.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick. Have a good one.